Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are your hosts. Movie Club is the show where we pick a movie and discuss it every week, just like a book club. On today's show, we are covering the classic thriller, The Night of the Hunter. Our thoughts and more coming up here on Movie Club. Released in 1955, The Night of the Hunter was directed by Charles Laughton and stars Robert Mitchum, Shelley Winters, and Lillian Gish. In the Deep South, a serial-killing preacher hunts two children who know the whereabouts of a stash of money. It currently has a 4.3 out of 5 on Letterboxd and is ranked 171 on its top 250. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for The Night of the Hunter. We will be talking about the movie and things that happen in it. So if you've never seen it before, which is probably most of you, highly recommend you go check it out. It's available on Tubi and on Amazon Prime as of the time of recording. But stay tuned to the end of the show to find out what movie we're going to be covering next week, because as always, it's going to be a good one. Alrighty, Kevin, so this one was my pick this week, as we alternate every single week. This one, for me, I picked this one just because I had seen it mentioned in a lot of different videos regarding both cinematography, but also villains. And so I really wanted to watch this movie because I had never heard of it before, and I really wanted to check it out. And now that we have, I'm glad to say that we have, but obviously I don't think you had heard of this movie before putting it on the list. So what were your first impressions?
Well, I read the synopsis of this just to make sure I was getting the correct info while watching this movie. And the synopsis does it justice, but not giving you too much info on it, which I absolutely love. It gives you just the spark notes of it, which I like. Well, I didn't have any intentions going into it, or I didn't look up any reviews like I usually do. It's just because it's an older film, and some people may sway left or right towards a older film. So, but I was super glad I watched this.
Yeah, and you really shouldn't sway though. Like, there is incredible stuff that is older. Some of the best films of all time are before 1970. So it's like you really gotta, stretch your imagination a little bit and what you want to watch for sure, because this movie is refreshingly dark for a 1950s movie.
It's amazingly dark. Like, the actor that does the preacher is like cynically dark, and it works for him, and he does a fantastic job at that.
Robert Mitchum is like the reason you watch this movie.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he is just so insidiously evil that it's just fantastic. I like, he is like this suave, charismatic performance, but like there is such a level of unhinged quality. Like the parts where he's being suave and talking to people and being the preacher role, like you buy into like the niceness of his personality, and but then like when he switches, because we never really see the bad Harry Powell until his honeymoon night. When he just treats, I forget the mom's name, treats her like garbage.
Willa Harper.
Yes, Willa Harper. Just treats her like garbage.
Oh yeah,
and it's just like, it's so incredibly well done. Obviously, well written as well, but obviously that has to come through the performance too. Yeah, and it just does.
Oh, and yeah, it's the characters that we see the preacher throughout the whole session pretty much, but the other characters don't see his dark side. So which is like, I'm sitting there when I was watching, I'm like, guys, you don't even know what he's planning. Like, while I'm watching it, and I'm like, you think he's just this savior that comes to the town and he's a great guy, preacher and everything, and he's like, I'm like, oh boy, you just wait.
He's a character you love to hate.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That is what is so fantastic about his performance and the writing for his character. And it is fantastic. And it is so well done because he's in the majority of this movie. He is the main actor of the film, arguably, except for maybe John.
I think they share the screen equally.
Sure.
But
I will say though, when Powell, the preacher, is not there, you feel him.
Oh yeah.
Like I feel like, you know, he's in every shot, lurking somewhere. Like he isn't, but it just feels like he is. It's just oozing with that kind of constant presence.
When the kids are on the boat, I'm looking in the background to see if he's following them in a certain way, or like see him just stalking them slowly, and which he does, but you don't see him, but you're like, I know he's coming. When is he gonna be here?
Yes, that's exactly it. It's literally like why the movie's titled perfectly. It is a predator, like just waiting to pounce at the right moment, and never comically so, which is just the fantastic part of it. But I mean, that's not to kind of throw anyone else in the bus. The other performances in this film are fine. I think that John, especially for a child actor, is pretty darn good. His sister is obviously younger and is just not very well experienced, but she's fine.
She's decent.
But John does and I have to get the actor's name here because it's going to drive me nuts. Billy Chapin looks like the actor's name. He's great. For a main child actor, he does a great job. There is one moment in the film, though, that I think a lot of people have issues with regarding him, and that is when, and I don't know if you picked up on this, when Powell is arrested, he goes over and starts opening up the money and trying to give it to him.
Yeah.
Which feels really out of place because he's been trying to hide the money the entire time from him. But I think from what I gathered from it, he really portrayed that snap. Like he watched his dad go through the same thing. And it's just that mental kind of a scar that's reopened.
And that's what I got from it too. It's not he's trying to save the preacher. It's like, oh my gosh, it like not unlocked a memory, but he like had like a flashback pretty much of his dad getting arrested, and he didn't want that to happen. Granted, he knows this guy is a bad person, but the fact that his dad had that happen to him was like it brought back flashbacks, and he didn't want that to happen again.
100%. It's fantastic. And I think that it just lends more to not only John's character, but just the overall like story of the film. Because I'm really curious, because I think this movie could have a potential for a lot of different meanings that you could take away from it. And so I'm really curious, like, how did you walk away from this movie? Like, what did you think it was trying to say? What do you think the message was?
The message to me when I was watching this movie was you can judge a book by its cover, but sometimes there's more pages in it that you don't want to know about, is what I would get from it. He comes off as this preacher who is so godly and heavenly and presents himself that way, but deep down, he's just maniacal and evil inside of him. And that's the pages that you don't want to read about.
Sure. And I could definitely see that. I think for me, and I kind of alluded to this a little bit more in my Letterboxd review, and I think that this film is surprisingly, for 1950s Cold War America, is a surprisingly secular film. And secular meaning non-religious, and maybe it's my own kind of worldview that I kind of saw in the movie, but for me it was really this perversion of religion. He's using this all as a guise to just do what he wants, which is so easy for people in power like that to do. He's using this thing that many people think is a good thing, and he's twisting it and using it to get closer to people. He's using it to poison people, and it's just incredible. And I guess, like, you know, obviously Mrs. Cooper, who's the character who takes in the Harper kids, is religious, but you can also see that as doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. She's not
Yeah.
doing it for a reward or punishment reason. She's doing it because it's the right thing. And so I think that you do see obviously a very surface level evil versus good story here, but
It's
the
not it.
dangers of something that can be so manipulative being
Yeah.
used to that effect.
Well, and it's not so in your face like this one's good, this one's evil. It's like you can take your one of good and but the two of evil come out somehow and you're like, okay, oh, that's
Mhm.
interesting. Oh, but she's coming back with this. And when they had that little fight on like the balcony, not the balcony, but the porch area, and she's like, you're not a religious person. And it's like kind of relief for me because I'm like, yeah, somebody like saw through him pretty much. Was great how they put that in there, that she knows from a religious woman that he is not the that religious in that reason.
Yeah, it's a selfish reasoning
Hmm.
and a self-fulfillment
Hmm.
reasoning, and not, obviously for the betterment of people around you, and things like that.
Hmm.
And it is fantastic, and I would like to see, and I was thinking about this, all day today. I would love to see a modern redo of this
That
that
would be
goes
great.
more into that route
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
show, you know, how that kind of religious ideology can be twisted into something that is self-fulfilling and
Hmm.
honestly evil.
Yeah, that
You
would
know,
be great to see. I don't know if it would come with some backlash though nowadays,
who
but
cares? Do it anyway.
eh, but
A
yeah, I
twenty
was.
four or Neon could do it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just throw it out there.
Send it to him. That would
But
be great to see.
kind of to change the subject though, I do want to talk. Like we've talked about story, we've talked about. I mean, also that just dawned on me: the wolf in sheep's clothing
Yeah.
kind of
Hmm.
idea, because the wolf is a hunter.
Yep.
So, Night of the Hunter, just saying. This movie is also, for a black and white film, it
It's
is
gorgeous.
gorgeous. I'm glad we said it at the same time, right? There
Hmm.
is, there are shots in this movie that are incredibly, like, they're incredibly well done. The way that it uses shadow and
Oh.
darkness is fantastic. Usually, like, whenever Powell is in the background, he's
Hmm.
silhouetted. Like he is
Hmm.
not, there's no defining features like an evil spirit kind of a thing.
Well, then
Um,
when he's outside of the house, when you first meet him at the house, he's standing under a lamppost. Half of him is lit, half of him is half of him is shaded, and it's like, oh, he has a shady part of him, but he's still everybody sees him in the light, and that was really I put that in my letterbox as well. It's just the way they represent him or present him in this film, you can take it both ways because you're seeing two people seeing the good side of him, but we're seeing the bad side of him.
yes, and
Mhm.
it's it's so well done. I'm gonna see if I can actually download. I want to put this picture up on screen because this is the one shot that stuck with me the entire time watching this movie. Just how well it was framed. And let's see here if I can
I can
actually.
maybe think I know what you're talking about. Is it when he's riding the horse and the kids are in the barn?
No, so
No.
that is a very good shot too, though. And
Yeah,
I is that one actually here? Um,
because I when I
I
put
do
it.
see an image of it, but this is the one that I was talking about here. Um, this one that's on the screen
Hmm.
is just so beautifully, uh, like it doesn't feel real, right?
No.
It almost feels like a theater stage, or
Hmm.
like the way that the house angles up and it's just dark all around, like almost like a dollhouse, like
Yeah.
watching the movie Hereditary.
Hmm.
Like it feels very similar to that, and I think that
Hmm.
this shot really stuck with me because it's also like Robert Mitchum does this weird like posing kind of a thing partway
Yeah.
through. It's really creepy, and and it kind of leans into like the tone of this movie too. Like obviously,
Hmm.
this is, I'm not going to say this is a horror movie. It's not. It's probably the
No.
closest thing you could get to like an art house horror movie in the 50s,
Hmm.
but it's definitely like, we often talk about like steps and kind of things that like, like good stepping stones to get into other genres. I feel like if
Yeah.
you're not into horror at all, this is one of those first kind of stepping stone movies I would recommend, just because it's got horror elements to it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got the thriller elements to it as well. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's scary. It's just
it's
like,
uneasy.
yeah, and like the director of this film, Charles Laughton, really utilizes the kind of style. I think it's expressionism, specifically German expressionism, that's used in like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Vampire almost, and things like that. And the way that it just kind of shows this gothic fairy tale almost.
Yeah.
And in many ways, I just think about this now, it really feels like a Deep South, like a fairy tale. Like if the South was to write like fairy tales, like the Brothers Grimm or something like that, I could see this being one of those.
Yeah.
It's just, it's
totally agree.
It's such a unique movie, and everyone I've talked to over the course of today, because I talk to people at work or through family and stuff, friends, and I'm glad I'm at the point where I can finally, every time someone talks to me, they're like, well, what would you recommend watching right now? And it's like The Night of the Hunter.
Yeah.
Because like it's just so unexpectedly, it still feels modern 70 years later.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like you can pop this on, like if you're in school or something and the teacher goes, all right, so what do we want to watch that expresses like something uneasy but in black and white era, and someone goes Night of the Hunter, they're going to get an A++ on that. So
if I ever start teaching film classes, which would be one of my dreams, this is for sure a film to show tone and to show like just constant unease.
Yeah.
Right. This movie is just constantly uneasy.
Like looking over your shoulder kind of feeling, because that's what John and the little girl were doing. They're always looking over their shoulder, but you're helping them look over your shoulder just in a wider perspective, looking out for them.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about something that I am a little bit lukewarm on, and
Okay.
Now the movie is, I'm not gonna say it's long. It's an hour and a half. I would say it's a perfect length for the kind of movie and the story that it's telling. I don't think it's too long. I don't think it's too short. I think it's perfect in the length department. When it comes to pacing, though, I feel like there's a little hiccup in pacing. Now, for me, it's between the time when the kids escape Powell and kind of like right up just past the point they start living with Mrs. Cooper.
Where they're floating down the river, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that movie slows down because you really had a climax with the whole basement sequence and everything going on where they escape the house.
Yeah,
that was like a pretty climactic sequence to have halfway through your movie, and then obviously you still got the final climax coming later. But like to go from peak to valley to peak, it just kind of felt a little bit off. And obviously we're talking about how there's that consistent tone, right? Like it's you feel Powell everywhere, even even though he's not necessarily there. It is when you get some incredible shots. I think that just going from climax to climax like that, and that little dip in pacing was just a little not enough for me to really like have any major issues with the film.
Yeah.
I did take a couple of points off it here and there, but it's just a little too slow in parts. So,
and it's just there's nothing going on. We were getting all of that action, or like right at the climax, and then they get into the boat, and it's like simmering down, but your body is still like heart beating, and everything like that. And it's like, I get that he was probably trying to get us to simmer down a little bit and ease us, like, oh my gosh, they're free, but he's still behind them. If they would have maybe shown him, which they did when they were in the barn, but maybe had maybe somebody singing the same song as he did, and while they're in the boat or something like that might have been helped to speed up that process of them floating down the river.
Sure. I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Exactly. It's one of those weird situations where I don't know what I would do. So, But other than that, yeah, I think this movie is just. I do want to talk about actually the final climax.
Okay.
In Mrs. Cooper's home, obviously whipping out the shotgun is a great way to get anyone to walk away. Even Powell's like, nope. It's great. But the sequence where Powell is just standing outside the house and singing, and she starts singing along too.
So
and then
good.
The daughter, the oldest girl that lives in the house, comes up with a candle, and it illuminates the screen or whatever it is. Obviously lighting, but it's used to great effect. I don't know. There's a YouTube clip of that sequence where the lighting is kind of dimmer than it was on my TV, and you can see Powell like go like and just like
duck
and duck down so he can like move off set. It's really funny. I didn't see that in the version I watched on Prime on my TV, but like it was just so funny watching the YouTube clip afterward. I was like, oh, but like, yeah, she's just sitting there with the shotgun. But then, you know, when he comes into the house and when she shoots him, the yelps that he lets out running to the barn, I felt those. Like it that feels like such a more realistic way for someone to take a hit and run away because they're in pain, as opposed to someone just being like, ugh, you know, like, no, like, sure, adrenaline can kick in, but not with a shotgun blast to the arm.
No, and yeah, the way he ran and like jumped over the fence. He didn't open the fence. He jumped over it and was still jumping because of how badly he was injured. It really made me think, oh my gosh, like hopefully, I mean, I know they didn't shoot him, but maybe he was like, hey, put like BBs in that or something so I can get like a good reaction out of it.
I have no idea. Like just the sound that he makes running away is just it was just fantastic. That whole sequence is just fantastic. Great way to end the movie, and a great way to end the story. And I think that there is definitely, I would say maybe my only other part that I'm not too keen on is when there's like all the mob is going after him, and it kind of like that didn't really go anywhere. Like obviously they were upset and everything. It would have been, I think, you know, if there were a modern version, I think that the mob should have gotten justice. The mob should have been the one that took him from the police or something and hung him. And you know, we got to hear one last attempt for him to manipulate the audience.
Oh, that would have been great.
But like, I think that would have taken away from this movie. And I think if in the hands of a better writer, I am not claiming to be a good writer by any means, but like if there was a way to make more of that mob situation, because there was a confusing part where Cooper and the kids are in a diner and they're eating, and then the mob's like, they're here, whatever. And like, it almost feels like they're at danger.
Yeah.
But then they're not. Like, it was really weird. And then like the mob's obviously looking out for, like, trying to find Powell, but then they don't. And the cops just take him. It kind of felt like a little bit of a wasted, right at the end was a little bit of a wasted potential.
It was just, it was too crazy. I feel like too many things going on. And I get that they wanted to be like, oh, let's have a mob in here trying to kick him out of the town and everything. But it just wasn't, it didn't play to what the movie was all about. It was all about slow moving, cynical, like maniacal thinking about it. But this one was just like pitchforks and fire, and let's get him out of here. But then they don't find him, and then the police have him, and it's like, so did the police have him or not have him, or did the mob give them to police? That was a little confusing.
Yeah, definitely. It's not the most easy to understand, but I don't blame the movie for that. It may be something with the original book. I actually do want to read the original book now, because I think that I mean, hopefully there's a little bit more in there, and I can, and because I feel like, you know, I haven't read the book, but I feel like Powell is a great representation of that character, and it would be really interesting to kind of put that mental image of Powell into the book and have him be the version of the character that you read. So, all right, Kevin. So since this was my pick this week, let's go ahead and toss it over to you first for your final thoughts and score.
Final thoughts and score. I gave it 4 stars out of 5 stars, which comes to a 90% out of 100. Go watch this movie if you want to watch a good villain movie. That's not violent or anything like that. Just eerie, suspenseful, and creepy. Absolutely, this will knock your socks off. And especially for a black and white movie from 1955, it was ahead of its time. Preacher, amazing character, played amazingly. John was played as good, but not as well. But he is a young guy, so that totally understandable. But there's two climaxes as we talked about, and there's a little valley, but those climaxes outweigh that valley a little bit for me, and this makes it a great movie.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I think this film is marvelous. It's just one of those examples of like older films that are truly better than I think a lot of people give them credit for. With an incredible villain and an incredible performance from Robert Mitchum, and just an incredible bit of tone and some really, really good cinematography for black and white film. And so for me, I ended up giving it a 95 out of 100, which is a 4.5 stars out of 5. So the question now falls to you. What did you think of The Night of the Hunter? We'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section down below, but remember to be respectful of one another because one of them may be a serial killing preacher. Next week, we'll be covering the animated fantasy film, Howl's Moving Castle. Can't wait to talk about that one, so make sure to watch it before we cover it so you're not spoiled. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure to catch us every week on Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with our live stream where we do movie news, reviews, and so much more. As well as make sure that you're subscribed here for any future content we've got coming up. Plenty of other projects in the pipeline, so make sure you're here with us for that journey. Just make sure to like, comment, and subscribe here as well because we love to see you, love to have you around. But again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep those eyes on the screen.